The iron gavel struck down with a crack that echoed through Katherine Kennedy's chest like a rifle shot, and she knew her life as she had known it was over. The afternoon sun blazed through the dusty windows of the cramped saloon in Ardmore, Oklahoma Territory, casting harsh shadows across the faces of men who had gathered to watch her humiliation. Katherine stood on a wooden crate, her hands trembling despite her best efforts to remain composed. The auctioneer, a pot-bellied man named Morris with tobacco-stained teeth, gripped her elbow with fingers that felt like iron bands. "Gentlemen, we have here Miss Katherine Kennedy, age 21, healthy and strong," Morris announced, his voice booming across the room. Her father, God rest his soul, left behind debts totaling $800. The creditors have agreed to settle the matter through this auction. The lady will serve as a bonded servant for a period of 5 years to whoever offers the highest bid. Katherine's throat tightened. Her father had died just 3 weeks ago, thrown from a spooked horse during a thunderstorm. She had buried him in the small cemetery on the edge of town, standing alone in the rain as the preacher said words that barely registered. Then the creditors had come. First Mr. Halloway from the general store, then the banker Mr. Sutton, then others she had never even known her father owed money to. The amounts had piled up impossibly high, debts from gambling and drinking that her father had hidden from her for years. The year was 1891, and while Katherine knew that indentured servitude was becoming less common, it still happened in the territories where law was newer and justice rougher. She had hoped, prayed even, that some decent family might purchase her bond, perhaps the Watsons who ran the boarding house or even the doctor's widow who needed help with her children. "We'll start the bidding at $100, Morris called out. A rancher in the back raised his hand. 100, 150, another man shouted. Katherine recognized him as Silas Crane, a cruel man who ran a cattle operation 20 miles south. Her stomach turned. 200, Crane called again when someone else bid. Katherine's eyes burned, but she refused to let tears fall. She kept her gaze fixed on a spot on the far wall, trying to pretend she was somewhere else, anywhere else. 300, a new voice said. It was deeper than the others, quieter but carrying weight. Katherine's eyes moved toward the sound despite herself. A man stood near the doorway, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing dusty traveling clothes and a wide-brimmed hat that shadowed his face. She could make out a strong jaw, dark hair, and eyes that seemed to be looking directly at her, though she could not read their expression from this distance. 350, Crane countered, irritation creeping into his voice. 500, the stranger said without hesitation. A murmur ran through the crowd. That was already more than half the total debt, an enormous sum for what was essentially purchasing someone's labor for 5 years. Crane's face reddened. 600. 1,000, the stranger said calmly. The room went silent. Katherine's heart hammered against her ribs. $1,000 was more than the total debt. It was unheard of. Morris, the auctioneer, looked stunned. "Sir, the debt is only 800. "I am aware," the stranger said. $1,000. Crane stared at the man with naked hostility but said nothing. No one else spoke. Morris cleared his throat, going once, going twice. The gavel came down. Sold to the gentleman for $1,000. Katherine felt the world tilt slightly. The stranger moved through the crowd, which parted for him like water around a stone. As he drew closer, she could see him more clearly. He was perhaps 26 or 27, with a weathered face that spoke of years outdoors, dark brown hair that touched his collar, and striking blue eyes that seemed to hold both strength and something gentler she could not name. He wore a gun at his hip, as most men did, but his hand stayed well away from it. He stopped in front of the crate where she stood and looked up at her. "Miss Kennedy," he said, his voice low enough that only she and Morris could hear. "My name is Vincent Kane." Morris rubbed his hands together. "Mr. Kane, if you'll come to the bank, we can settle the payment and draw up the indenture papers." "There will be no indenture papers," Vincent said, still looking at Katherine. "I am paying her father's debts in full, plus an additional sum for her trouble. Miss Kennedy will be under no obligation to me whatsoever." Katherine's breath caught. "What?" Morris sputtered. "But sir, that's not how this works. You've purchased her bond." Vincent finally turned to look at the auctioneer, and something in his gaze made the older man take a step back. "I have paid money to settle debts. Miss Kennedy is a free woman, not property to be bought and sold. If you have a problem with that arrangement, we can discuss it outside." The threat was subtle but unmistakable. Morris swallowed and shook his head quickly. "No problem at all, sir." "Very generous of you." Vincent extended his hand to Katherine. "May I help you down?" She stared at his hand as if it were a foreign object. Nothing made sense. Men did not spend enormous sums of money for nothing. There had to be some expectation, some hidden price she would be required to pay. "I don't understand," she whispered. "I will explain," Vincent said. "But first, let's get you out of here." The kindness in his voice was almost harder to bear than the auction had been. Katherine felt something crack inside her chest, all the fear and grief and humiliation of the past weeks pressing against her composure. She took his hand because she did not know what else to do. His grip was warm and steady as he helped her step down from the crate. Her legs felt unsteady beneath her, and she stumbled slightly. Vincent's other hand moved to her elbow, supporting her without crowding her. "Easy," he said quietly. "You are safe now." The crowd was still watching, some faces curious, others disappointed that the spectacle had ended so quickly. Katherine saw Silas Crane glaring at Vincent with undisguised hatred. She knew that look, had seen it before on men who did not like being denied what they wanted. Vincent seemed unconcerned. He kept his hand lightly on Katherine's elbow as he guided her toward the door. The crowd parted again, no one willing to challenge him directly. They stepped out into the bright afternoon sun, and Katherine breathed in air that felt cleaner than the stale atmosphere inside the saloon. The street was busy with the usual traffic of wagons and horses, people going about their business in the growing town. Ardmore had sprung up quickly when the railroad came through, and it seemed to be expanding every month. "I have a room at the boarding house," Vincent said. "You can sit down, have some water, then we will talk." "I have a house," Katherine heard herself say. "It was my father's. I suppose it belongs to the creditors now." "The debts are paid," Vincent said. "The house is yours." "But I cannot pay you back $1,000, Katherine said, her voice rising slightly. "I have nothing. I am nothing." Vincent stopped walking and turned to face her fully. His blue eyes held hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. "You are not nothing, Miss Kennedy. You are a woman who has endured a terrible loss and a worse humiliation with dignity and courage. That is worth far more than $1,000. Tears finally spilled over, and Katherine hated herself for it. She had held them back during the auction, during her father's funeral, during all of it, and now they came in front of this stranger who had somehow saved her. "I am sorry," she gasped, trying to wipe her face. "Don't be," Vincent said gently. He pulled a clean handkerchief from his pocket and offered it to her. "You have earned the right to cry." She took the handkerchief and pressed it to her face, trying to collect herself. They were standing in the middle of the street, and people were staring. She could hear whispers, feel the weight of curious eyes. "Let me walk you home," Vincent said. "We can talk there, away from prying eyes." Katherine nodded because speaking seemed impossible at the moment. She led the way down the dusty street, past the general store where her father had run up bills he could not pay, past the church where she had sat alone at his funeral, past the dress shop where she used to imagine buying pretty things she could never afford. Her house sat at the edge of town, a small wooden structure that her father had built when they first came to Ardmore 5 years ago. The paint was peeling, the porch sagged slightly, but it had been home. Catherine's hands shook as she opened the door. Inside, everything was exactly as she had left it that morning. The simple furniture her father had made, the iron stove in the corner, the table where they had eaten countless meals together. His coat still hung on a peg by the door. She had not been able to bring herself to move it. "Please sit down," she said, gesturing to one of the chairs at the table. Her manners kicked in automatically, even in the midst of chaos. Vincent removed his hat and sat. In the better light of the house, Katherine could see him more clearly. He had a strong, honest face with small lines around his eyes that suggested he smiled often, though he was not smiling now. His clothes were well made but worn, the clothes of a man who worked for a living but took care of what he owned. Katherine sat across from him, twisting his handkerchief in her hands. "Why did you do that?" she asked. "You do not know me." Vincent was quiet for a moment, seeming to choose his words carefully. 3 years ago, my sister found herself in a similar situation. Her husband died, leaving her with debts and 2 small children. She lived in a town in Texas, far from where I was working. Before I could get to her, she was put up for auction just like you were today. Catherine's chest tightened. "What happened?" "A man bought her bond," Vincent said, and his voice went flat. "He was not kind. By the time I found her and bought her freedom, she was broken in ways that no person should be broken. She died 6 months later. The doctors said it was pneumonia, but I know better. She died because her spirit had been crushed." "I am sorry," Katherine whispered. "When I rode into town this morning and heard about the auction, I knew I could not let it happen again," Vincent said. "Not when I had the means to prevent it. I have been working as a foreman on a ranch in Texas, saving money to start my own spread. I have almost enough, but not quite. I decided that this was more important." "You gave up your dream for a stranger," Katherine said, struggling to comprehend such selflessness. "Dreams can wait," Vincent said. "Your freedom could not." They sat in silence for a moment. Katherine could hear the clock on the mantel ticking, the sound of a wagon passing outside, the distant lowing of cattle being driven through town. "What will you do now?" she asked. Vincent shrugged. "Find work. Save up again. I am a good cattleman. I can find a position." "Here." The word came out before Katherine could stop it, and she felt her face heat. "I mean, will you stay in Ardmore or go back to Texas?" "I have not decided," Vincent said, but his eyes held hers with an expression that made her heart beat faster. "That depends on several things." "What things?" "Whether there is reason to stay," he said simply. Katherine looked down at the handkerchief in her hands, her mind racing. This man had saved her from a fate that would have destroyed her, asking nothing in return. He was kind and brave and honest, and she realized with a start that she did not want him to leave. "I need to find work myself," she said. "I have some money set aside, enough for a few months if I am careful, but I will need employment eventually." "What kind of work are you trained for?" Vincent asked. "I can cook and clean, so keep books. My mother taught me to read and write before she died. I have been keeping house for my father since I was 14. "You were young to lose your mother," Vincent said with sympathy. "Cholera," Katherine said. "It swept through our town in Missouri. We came west after that, hoping for a fresh start. My father meant well, but he was never the same after she died." Vincent nodded, understanding. "Grief can drive a man to make poor choices." "He gambled," Katherine said. "And drank. I knew about some of it, but not the extent. After he died, I was shocked by how much he owed. I tried to negotiate with the creditors, offered to work off the debts, but they said it would take too long. They wanted their money." Her voice turned bitter. "Mr. Sutton at the bank suggested the auction, said it was the cleanest way to resolve everything." "Sutton is a bastard," Vincent said bluntly. "Pardon my language." Despite everything, Katherine felt a small smile tug at her lips. "He is, but he is also powerful in this town." "Money is not the same as power," Vincent said. "Real power comes from integrity, from treating people decently." "That is an unusual philosophy for a cattleman," Katherine observed. "My father taught me that all people deserve dignity," Vincent said. "He was a rancher in Colorado, not a wealthy man but an honest one. He always said that how you treat someone who can do nothing for you tells everything about your character. He sounds like a good man. He was. He died when I was 22. My mother had already passed a few years before. That is when I became responsible for my younger sister. I thought I was taking care of her, but I was working far away, sending money but not being present. I failed her." The pain in his voice was raw, and Katherine felt a surge of compassion. "You could not have known what would happen." "No, but I should have been there. I learned the hard way that money is not a substitute for presence, for protection." He looked at her directly. "That is why I could not ride past that auction today. I could not fail again." Katherine felt tears threatening once more. "You did not fail. You saved me." "I am glad," Vincent said softly. "You deserve to be saved." They sat together as the afternoon light shifted, painting the small room in shades of gold. Katherine felt something stirring in her chest, something she had never experienced before. She had known boys in Missouri, and a few young men had shown interest in her over the years in Ardmore, but she had never felt this pull, this sense of connection with someone. "Are you hungry?" she asked suddenly. "I could make supper. It is the least I can do after what you have done for me." Vincent smiled, and it transformed his face. "I would like that very much if it is not too much trouble." "No trouble at all," Katherine said, rising. "I enjoy cooking." She moved to the stove, grateful to have something to do with her hands. There was not much in the house, but she had beans and salt pork, flour for biscuits, and some preserved vegetables. It would make a decent meal. As she worked, Vincent asked questions about her life, and she found herself talking more freely than she had in years. She told him about her childhood in Missouri, the happy years before her mother died. She described the journey west, the hope she and her father had felt starting over in the Oklahoma Territory. She even told him about her dreams, small things like having a garden, maybe opening a bakery someday. In turn, Vincent told her about his life. He described growing up on a Colorado ranch, learning to work cattle from the time he could walk. He talked about the beauty of the mountains, the hard winters, the satisfaction of honest work. He spoke of his sister with deep affection and lingering grief, painting a picture of a spirited girl who loved to laugh. She wanted to be a teacher, Vincent said. She was so smart, always reading. But then she met Thomas, fell in love, got married at 18. I thought he was a good man. I was wrong. Love can make us blind, Katherine said, sliding biscuits into the oven. Yes, Vincent agreed, but it can also open our eyes to what truly matters. There was something in his tone that made Katherine glance at him. He was watching her with an expression that made warmth spread through her chest. They ate together as the sun set, and Katherine could not remember the last time a meal had felt so comfortable. Vincent complimented her cooking with genuine appreciation, and they talked about everything and nothing. He told her funny stories about cattle drives, about stubborn bulls and clever horses. She told him about the characters in Ardmore, the gossip and small dramas that filled the town. By the time they finished eating, full darkness had fallen outside. Vincent stood reluctantly. I should go. You have had a long day. Katherine stood as well, suddenly not wanting him to leave. The house felt too empty, too full of memories and grief. Will I see you tomorrow, if you would like? Vincent said. I need to visit the bank in the morning to finalize the payment for your father's debts. Then I thought I would look for work. The McCready Ranch is hiring, Katherine said. I heard Mrs. McCready mention it at church last week. They lost their foreman last month. Vincent's eyebrows rose. That is good to know, thank you. They walked to the door together. Vincent put on his hat and paused on the threshold. Miss Kennedy, I want you to know that you are under no obligation to me whatsoever. You do not owe me gratitude or companionship or anything else. I helped you because it was the right thing to do, not because I expect anything in return. I know, Katherine said, though her heart sank a little, but I would like to see you again anyway, as friends if nothing else. Vincent smiled, that warm smile that lit his whole face. I would like that too. After he left, Katherine cleaned up from supper and prepared for bed. As she lay in the darkness, she thought about the strange turn her life had taken. This morning she had woken in despair, facing a future of servitude and degradation. Tonight she was free, and she had met a man unlike any she had ever known. She fell asleep thinking about blue eyes and gentle strength, about kindness that asked for nothing in return. The next morning, Katherine woke early and dressed carefully. She told herself she was not trying to look nice for Vincent, that she simply wanted to take pride in her appearance after yesterday's humiliation. But she knew she was lying to herself as she pinned her dark hair more carefully than usual and chose her best day dress, a blue calico that brought out her eyes. She was baking bread when a knock came at the door. Her heart jumped, and she quickly wiped flour from her hands before answering. Vincent stood on her porch, looking freshly shaved and somehow more approachable in the morning light. Good morning, Miss Kennedy. I was wondering if you might accompany me to the bank. I thought you would want to ensure the debts are properly recorded as paid. That is very thoughtful, Katherine said. Please, come in for a moment while I get ready. She pulled the bread from the oven and covered it with a cloth, then grabbed her shawl and bonnet. Together they walked into town, and Katherine was acutely aware of the stares and whispers that followed them. She held her head high, refusing to show shame for something that was not her fault. At the bank, Mr. Sutton greeted them with an oily smile that did not reach his eyes. Mr. Kane, Miss Kennedy, I trust you are here to settle yesterday's business. I am, Vincent said coolly. I want a full accounting of all debts owed by the late Mr. Kennedy, receipts for payment and documentation that Miss Kennedy has no further financial obligation. Sutton's smile tightened. Of course. Though I must say your generosity yesterday was quite unexpected, quite unusual. Decency should not be unusual, Vincent said. The banker's face reddened, but he turned to his ledgers without comment. For the next half hour, he produced documents detailing every debt, from the largest amount owed to the general store to the smallest owed to the livery stable. Vincent examined each one carefully, asking questions and making notes. Katherine watched him work with growing respect. He was thorough and intelligent, not a man to be cheated or rushed. When Sutton tried to include a dubious charge for interest that seemed excessive, Vincent challenged it immediately. This interest rate is usurious, Vincent said flatly. I will pay the principal and reasonable interest, not this inflated amount. Sutton sputtered, but eventually backed down. By the time they were finished, the total came to $837, significantly less than the original claim. Vincent counted out the money in gold coins and bills, placing it on the desk in neat stacks. I want receipts for each creditor, signed by you as the agent handling this matter. And I want a letter stating that Miss Kennedy is free and clear of all debts associated with her father." "That will take time to prepare," Sutton protested. "Then we will wait," Vincent said, settling into his chair. It took another hour, but finally all the paperwork was completed. Vincent handed the receipts to Katherine. "Keep these somewhere safe. If anyone ever questions whether the debts were paid, you have proof." Katherine clutched the papers, feeling as if she held her freedom in her hands. "Thank you," she whispered. Outside the bank, she felt lighter than she had in weeks. The weight of obligation and fear had been crushing her, and now it was simply gone. "I need to ride out to the McCready Ranch," Vincent said. "Would you like to come with me? It is a beautiful day for a ride, and if I am offered the job, you could meet the family. Mrs. McCready might know of employment opportunities for you as well." Katherine hesitated. She had work to do at home, but the thought of spending more time with Vincent was appealing. "I would like that, but I do not have a horse." "I have two," Vincent said. "I bought a mare this morning, gentle and well-trained. I thought perhaps you might have need of one." Katherine stared at him. "You bought me a horse." "I bought a horse," Vincent corrected gently. "What happens to her is up to you, but yes, I hoped you might ride her." "Vincent, you have already done so much." "I can afford a horse," he said, "and you should not be trapped in town without transportation. Please, consider it a gift from one friend to another." The way he said friend made Katherine's chest warm. She nodded. "Then yes, I would be happy to accompany you." They walked to the livery stable where Vincent had boarded his animals. His own horse was a handsome bay gelding with intelligent eyes. The mare he had purchased was smaller, a pretty gray with a white blaze on her forehead. "She is beautiful," Katherine said, running her hand down the mare's soft nose. "The livery owner says she is calm and easy to handle," Vincent said. "Her name is Dove," Katherine laughed. "That is a lovely name." Vincent helped her mount, his hands steadying at her waist, and Katherine felt warmth spread through her at the contact. She settled into the saddle, adjusting her skirts, and found that Vincent was right. The mare stood perfectly still, patient and gentle. They rode out of town together, and Katherine felt a sense of freedom she had not experienced in years. The Oklahoma Territory stretched around them in rolling plains covered with prairie grass, the sky impossibly blue overhead. In the distance, she could see the dark shapes of cattle grazing. "This land is beautiful," Vincent said, echoing her thoughts. "Different from Colorado, but beautiful in its own way." "You miss the mountains?" Katherine asked. "Sometimes," he admitted. "But I am learning that home is not always about place. Sometimes it is about people." Katherine glanced at him, but he was looking straight ahead, his expression unreadable beneath his hat brim. The McCready Ranch was about 5 miles from town, a prosperous spread with good grazing land and a solid ranch house. As they rode up, a woman emerged from the house, wiping her hands on her apron. She was in her 40s with kind eyes and graying hair. "Good morning," she called. "Can I help you, Mrs. McCready?" Vincent dismounted and removed his hat. "My name is Vincent Kane." "I heard you might be looking for a ranch foreman." Mrs. McCready's face brightened. "We are indeed. My husband is out checking the north pasture, but he should be back soon. Please, come in and have some coffee while you wait." Katherine dismounted as well, and Mrs. McCready noticed her with interest. "Katherine Kennedy, is that you?" "Yes, madam," Katherine said, surprised the woman knew her name. "I heard about yesterday's troubles," Mrs. McCready said bluntly. "Shameful business putting a young woman up for auction like that." "I am glad to see you looking well." "Mr. Kane was generous enough to settle my father's debts," Katherine said. Mrs. McCready looked between them with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Did he now? Well, that was Christian of you, Mr. Kane. Come in, both of you." The ranch house was comfortable and well kept. Mrs. McCready poured coffee and set out fresh cake, chatting easily about the ranch and the territory. She had been in Oklahoma for 15 years, she told them, coming from Kansas with her husband when the land first opened for settlement. It was wild then, she said. Still is in some ways, but we have built something good here. 3,000 head of cattle, good grazing land, water rights to the creek. We need someone who can manage the hands and help my husband with the breeding program. I have experience with all of that, Vincent said. I have been foreman on the Running W Ranch in Texas for the past 3 years. Before that, I worked on my family's ranch in Colorado. Why did you leave Texas? Mrs. McCready asked directly. Vincent did not hesitate. I heard about Miss Kennedy's situation and came to help. I have not yet decided whether I will return to Texas or seek employment here. Mrs. McCready's expression softened. I see. Well, that speaks well of your character, young man. My husband will want to talk to you about specifics, but I can tell you we pay $70 a month plus room and board. The foreman's cabin is small but comfortable. We expect hard work and honesty. That is more than fair, Vincent said. They heard horses outside and Mrs. McCready stood. That will be Robert now. Mr. McCready turned out to be a weathered man in his 50s with shrewd eyes and a firm handshake. He questioned Vincent extensively about his experience, asking detailed questions about cattle breeding, range management, and handling ranch hands. Vincent answered everything confidently, and Katherine could see Mr. McCready's approval growing. I will need to check your references, Mr. McCready said finally, but if what you say is true, the job is yours. I can provide a letter from my previous employer, Vincent said. Though it will take time for you to write to Texas and receive a response. I will send a telegram, Mr. McCready said. Should have an answer within a few days. Can you start Monday if the reference checks out? Yes, sir, Vincent said. They shook hands and Mrs. McCready turned to Katherine. What about you, dear? What will you do now that your troubles are settled? I am looking for employment, Katherine admitted. I can cook, clean, sew, keep books. Can you teach? Mrs. McCready asked. Katherine blinked in surprise. I can read and write, do figures. I suppose I could teach basic lessons. We have been talking about starting a school here in the county, Mrs. McCready said. There are enough families with children now that it makes sense. The problem is finding a teacher. Most young women who come out here are not educated enough, and educated women do not usually want to come to the territory. I would love to teach, Katherine said, feeling excitement stir. I have always loved learning. It would not pay much, Mrs. McCready warned. Maybe $25 a month to start. We would have to build a schoolhouse, gather books. It would take time to organize. I have time, Katherine said, and I have enough money set aside to manage for a while. Then let me talk to some of the other ranch families, Mrs. McCready said. We could organize a meeting, see if we can make this happen. Are you willing to teach children of all ages? Of course, Katherine said. Mrs. McCready smiled warmly. I like you, Katherine Kennedy. You have had a hard time of it, but you have not let it break you. That takes strength. On the ride back to town, Katherine felt happier than she had in months. The possibility of teaching excited her, gave her something to look forward to beyond just survival. You seem pleased, Vincent observed. I am, Katherine said. Teaching would be wonderful, meaningful. You would be good at it, Vincent said. You are patient and kind. Children would respond well to you. How can you know that? You barely know me. Vincent looked at her seriously. I know enough. I have watched how you handle difficult situations with grace. I have seen your strength and your compassion. Those qualities matter more than anything else. Katherine felt her cheeks warm. You seem to have a high opinion of me based on very little evidence. I have good instincts about people, Vincent said. They have rarely been wrong. They rode in comfortable silence for a while, the afternoon sun warm on their shoulders. Katherine found herself stealing glances at Vincent, admiring the easy way he sat in the saddle, the strength in his hands on the reins, the profile of his face beneath his hat. She was attracted to him, she realized, not just grateful for what he had done, but genuinely drawn to him as a person. The realization was both exciting and frightening. She had never felt this way before, had never understood what the romantic novels her mother used to read were describing. Now she was beginning to understand. "What are you thinking?" Vincent asked, catching her looking at him. "About how much my life has changed in 2 days," Katherine said, which was true if not complete. "3 days ago I was despairing. Now I have hope." "Good," Vincent said simply. "You deserve hope." When they reached Katherine's house, Vincent helped her dismount, his hands lingering at her waist perhaps a moment longer than necessary. Katherine looked up at him, and their eyes met. Something passed between them, an understanding without words. "Would you like to come in for supper?" Katherine asked. "I have that bread I baked this morning, and I could make a stew." "I would like that very much," Vincent said. They settled into a pattern over the next few days that felt natural and right. Vincent received word that his references checked out, and he started work at the McCready Ranch. Each evening, he would ride into town to see Katherine, and they would share supper together. Sometimes they talked for hours. Sometimes they sat in comfortable silence. Vincent was always respectful, never presuming, but Katherine could feel the connection between them growing stronger. Mrs. McCready moved quickly on the school idea, organizing a meeting of ranch families. Katherine attended, nervous but determined, and made her case for why education mattered. To her relief and delight, the families were enthusiastic. They agreed to pool resources to build a simple schoolhouse and provide supplies. Katherine would start teaching in 6 weeks, once construction was complete. "I am proud of you," Vincent said when she told him the news. "You are building a future for yourself." "We are both building futures," Katherine said. "You have your job at the ranch." "Yes," Vincent said, "though it is not quite the future I had envisioned." "What do you mean?" Vincent was quiet for a moment. "I thought by now I would be starting my own ranch, being my own boss. Instead, I am working for someone else again." "You gave up that dream for me," Katherine said quietly. "I have not forgotten that." "I do not regret it," Vincent said firmly. "Some things matter more than dreams." They were sitting on Katherine's porch watching the sun set. The evening was warm, the air full of the sounds of crickets and distant cattle. Katherine felt peaceful in a way she had not felt since before her mother died. "Vincent," she said softly, "can I ask you something? Anything. Why have you spent every evening with me this week? You must be tired from working all day. You could be resting." Vincent turned to look at her, his blue eyes serious in the fading light. "Because there is nowhere else I would rather be." Katherine's breath caught. "Really?" "Really," Vincent said. "Katherine, I know we have only known each other a short time. I know you have been through terrible things and probably do not need complications in your life. But I need to be honest with you. I am drawn to you in a way I have never experienced before. When I am working, I am thinking about seeing you. When I am with you, I do not want to leave. You make me want to be a better man." "You are already a good man," Katherine whispered. "I want to be the man you deserve," Vincent said. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand. "I do not expect anything from you. I just needed you to know how I feel." Katherine looked down at their joined hands, his large and calloused, hers smaller and work-worn. She thought about the past week, about how Vincent had made her feel safe and valued. She thought about his kindness, his integrity, the way he looked at her as if she were precious. "I think about you too," she admitted. "When you are not here, I find myself waiting for you to arrive." When you are here, I am happier than I have been in years." Vincent's face lit up with joy. "Katherine." "I do not know what this is," she said. "I have never felt this way before. I think," Vincent said gently, "that this is the beginning of love. Love." The word hung in the air between them, full of possibility and promise. Katherine tested it in her mind and found it felt right. "Yes," she said, "I think it might be." Vincent raised her hand to his lips and kissed it softly. The gesture was old-fashioned and courtly, and it made Katherine's heart flutter. "May I court you properly?" Vincent asked. "I know the circumstances of how we met were unusual, but I would like to do this right. I would like to call on you to let the town see that my intentions are honorable." "I would like that," Katherine said. They sat together as the stars came out, hand in hand, talking about their hopes and dreams. Vincent told her about the ranch he still wanted to own someday, about raising cattle and horses and building something lasting. Katherine told him about the school she would teach, about maybe writing a book of lessons for frontier children. "We could do it together," Vincent said. "Build a life, I mean. I am getting ahead of myself, I know, but Katherine, I cannot imagine my future without you in it." "I cannot imagine mine without you either," Katherine said, and realized it was true. In just 1 week, this man had become essential to her happiness. Vincent left reluctantly that night, but not before kissing Katherine's forehead gently. "Sleep well," he said. "Dream of good things." Katherine did dream of good things. She dreamed of Vincent, of a life together, of happiness she had never thought possible. The next weeks passed in a blur of activity and growing affection. Vincent courted Katherine openly, and while there was some gossip in town, most people seemed to view their relationship favorably. The story of how Vincent had paid double to set her free had spread, and public opinion had turned strongly in their favor and against the creditors who had forced the auction. The schoolhouse was built quickly, a simple structure but sturdy and well-made. Vincent helped with the construction on his days off, as did many of the ranch hands and local farmers. Katherine organized supplies, wrote to companies back east for books and slates, and prepared lesson plans for children ranging from age 5 to 15. On the day before the school was set to open, Vincent asked Katherine to go on a picnic with him. They rode out to a beautiful spot by the creek that ran through McCready land, a place shaded by cottonwood trees with wildflowers growing thick on the banks. They spread a blanket and shared the meal Katherine had packed. The late September day was perfect, warm but with a hint of the cooler weather to come. They talked and laughed, completely comfortable with each other now. After they had eaten, Vincent grew serious. "Katherine, there is something I need to talk to you about." "What is it?" she asked, concerned by his tone. "Mr. McCready called me into his office yesterday," Vincent said. "He is impressed with my work and he has made me an offer. He is getting older, and he wants to start transitioning some of the ranch ownership. He has offered to sell me a 25% stake in the operation over time, taking the cost out of my wages and a share of the profits." "Vincent, that is wonderful," Katherine exclaimed. "It is an incredible opportunity," Vincent agreed. "It would mean I would be part owner, working toward eventually owning the whole ranch when he and Mrs. McCready retire. But it also means I would be tied to Ardmore for the foreseeable future. I would not be free to move to start my own spread somewhere else. But this is better than starting over," Katherine said. "You would have an established ranch, good land, everything you need." "Yes," Vincent said, "but I wanted to talk to you before I accepted. Because this decision affects you too." "How does it affect me?" Vincent took both her hands in his. "Because I am going to ask you to marry me, Katherine Kennedy. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon. And when I do, I hope you will say yes. So I need to know if you would be happy building a life here in Ardmore, or if you have dreams of going somewhere else." Catherine's heart was pounding. "You are going to ask me to marry you. Is that all right?" Vincent asked, suddenly uncertain. "I know we have only known each other 2 months and you have been through so much. If I am presuming too much, if you need more time—" "Vincent," Katherine interrupted. "Yes," he blinked. "Yes, you need more time." "No," she said, laughing. "Yes, I will marry you. You do not have to wait. I know my own heart. I love you." Vincent's face transformed with joy. He cupped her face in his hands. "You love me." "I love you," Katherine confirmed. "I have loved you almost from the beginning, I think. You saved me, Vincent, and not just from the auction. You saved me from despair, from giving up on hope. You showed me what real goodness looks like." "Katherine," Vincent breathed, and then he kissed her. It was Catherine's first real kiss, and it was everything she had dreamed it would be. Vincent's lips were warm and gentle, questioning at first, then deeper as she responded. She felt as if fireworks were going off inside her chest, as if the whole world had narrowed to just the two of them. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Vincent rested his forehead against hers. "I love you so much. I did not know it was possible to feel this way." "Neither did I," Katherine said. "But I do. I love you, Vincent Kane, and yes, I will marry you whenever you ask." "Then I am asking now," Vincent said. "Katherine, will you marry me? Will you be my wife, build a life with me here in Oklahoma? I promise I will spend every day trying to make you happy." "Yes," Katherine said, laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes, yes, yes." Vincent kissed her again, and Katherine felt as if she were flying. 2 months ago, she had been standing on an auction block, terrified and humiliated. Now she was engaged to the best man she had ever known, with a teaching position she loved and a future full of promise. They stayed by the creek until sunset, making plans and dreaming together. They decided on a Christmas wedding, giving them time to prepare and save money. Vincent would accept Mr. McCready's offer and begin building his stake in the ranch. Katherine would teach and establish herself in the community. Together, they would build a life. When they returned to town, they were met with congratulations and well wishes. Mrs. McCready, who had suspected which way the wind was blowing, threw them an impromptu engagement party at the ranch. The whole community seemed genuinely happy for them, and Katherine felt embraced in a way she never had before. The school opened to great success. Katherine had 15 students ranging from 5-year-old twins from the Watson farm to a 14-year-old boy from the Jensen ranch who could barely read. She loved every moment of it, the challenge of teaching different ages, the satisfaction of watching children learn and grow. Vincent threw himself into his work at the ranch, proving his worth daily. Mr. McCready's respect for him grew, and the papers were drawn up for the partnership. Vincent began making payments toward his ownership stake, and he and Katherine started saving toward their future together. They saw each other every day, either when Vincent came to town or when Katherine rode out to the ranch after school. They were building a relationship based on friendship and respect as much as attraction, and Katherine treasured every moment. As Christmas approached, the excitement in town grew. Weddings were social events in frontier communities, and everyone wanted to help. The church ladies made Katherine a beautiful white dress. The ranchers donated food for the reception, and the whole town prepared to celebrate. Katherine invited everyone she knew, which was not difficult in a small community. Vincent invited the McCreadys and the ranch hands, and he also sent word to some friends from Texas. To Katherine's surprise, he also extended an invitation to Mr. Sutton the banker and the other creditors who had forced her auction. "Why would you invite them?" Katherine asked. "After what they did." "Because I want them to see you happy and thriving," Vincent said. "I want them to witness the life we are building and know that their cruelty failed. Also, because forgiveness frees us, not them. Katherine thought about that and realized he was right. She did not want to carry bitterness into her marriage. She wanted to start fresh, focused on the future rather than the past. The days leading up to the wedding were a joyful chaos of preparation. Katherine moved her few possessions to the foreman's cabin at the McCready Ranch, where she and Vincent would live. It was small but cozy, with a good stove, solid furniture, and windows that looked out over the beautiful prairie. On Christmas Eve, the day before her wedding, Katherine stood in her old house one final time. She had sold it to a young couple who were newly arrived in Ardmore, and they were taking possession after the first of the year. She walked through the rooms, remembering both the happy times and the sad ones, and said goodbye to that chapter of her life. Vincent found her there, standing in the empty parlor. "Are you all right?" he asked gently. "Yes," Katherine said. "I am just saying goodbye. This was my home for 5 years. My father and I had good times here before he got lost in his grief and addictions." Vincent put his arm around her. "You are allowed to remember him with love, even though he made mistakes." "I do love him," Katherine said. "I am angry at him too for putting me in that situation, but I love him." "That is healthy," Vincent said. "People are complicated. We can hold multiple feelings about them." They locked the door and walked together toward their future. The next day dawned clear and cold, perfect winter weather. The church was packed with people, all of them smiling and happy. Mrs. McCready had helped Katherine get ready, fussing over her like a mother. "You look beautiful," she said, adjusting Katherine's veil. "Vincent is a lucky man." "I am the lucky one," Katherine said. "You are both lucky," Mrs. McCready said firmly. "You found each other when you needed it most. That is a blessing." The ceremony was simple and moving. Katherine walked down the aisle alone, her head high, and met Vincent at the altar. He looked handsome in his best suit, his eyes full of love and promise. The preacher spoke about love and commitment, about building a life together through good times and bad. Katherine barely heard the words. She was focused on Vincent, on the way he looked at her as if she were the most precious thing in the world. When it came time for vows, Vincent spoke clearly and firmly. "I, Vincent Kane, take you, Katherine Kennedy, to be my wife. I promise to love you, honor you, and cherish you for all the days of my life. I will work hard to provide for our family. I will protect you and support your dreams. I will be faithful and true until death parts us." Katherine's voice shook slightly with emotion as she repeated her own vows. "I, Katherine Kennedy, take you, Vincent Kane, to be my husband. I promise to love you, honor you, and cherish you for all the days of my life. I will build a home with you, stand beside you in all things, and be your partner in joy and in sorrow. I will be faithful and true until death parts us." They exchanged simple gold bands that Vincent had ordered from a jeweler in Oklahoma City, and then the preacher pronounced them man and wife. "You may kiss your bride," he said with a smile. Vincent did, thoroughly, to the applause and cheers of everyone gathered. When they broke apart, Katherine was laughing and crying at the same time, overwhelmed with happiness. The reception was held at the McCready Ranch in the large barn, which had been decorated with pine boughs and ribbons. There was music and dancing, abundant food and drink, and a joy that filled the space. Katherine danced with Vincent, with Mr. McCready, with ranch hands and farmers and townsfolk. She felt embraced by community in a way that healed something deep inside her. She was no longer alone. She had a husband, friends, a place in the world. As the evening wound down, Vincent pulled her aside. "Are you happy?" he asked. "Deliriously," Katherine said. "This is the happiest day of my life." "Mine too," Vincent said. "From the moment I walked into that saloon and saw you standing on that auction block, I knew my life was about to change. I just did not know how much." "Do you ever regret it?" Katherine asked. "Giving up your savings, staying here instead of starting your own ranch?" "Never," Vincent said firmly. "Katherine, you are worth more than any ranch, any amount of money. You are my dream now, building a life with you, that is all I want." Katherine kissed him, pouring all her love and gratitude into it. "I will spend my life making sure you never regret choosing me." "I could never regret it," Vincent said. "You are the best thing that ever happened to me." They left the reception to good-natured teasing and well wishes, riding together on Vincent's horse back to their cabin. It was late, the stars brilliant overhead, the winter air crisp and clean. Inside the cabin, a fire had been laid and lit by some thoughtful person. The small space glowed with warmth and welcome. Vincent carried Katherine over the threshold, making her laugh. "We are really married," she said wonderingly. "We really are," Vincent said, setting her down gently. "Mrs. Kane." "I like the sound of that," Katherine said. That night they came together as husband and wife, and it was both tender and passionate. Vincent was gentle and patient, mindful that this was Katherine's first time. He made sure she felt safe and loved, and Katherine gave herself to him completely, trusting him with her body as she had already trusted him with her heart. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the darkness, talking quietly about everything and nothing. Katherine felt utterly content, utterly safe. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you too," Vincent said. "Now sleep, my wife. Tomorrow our real life begins." The first year of their marriage was full of joy and hard work. Katherine taught school and Vincent managed the ranch, both of them thriving in their roles. They grew closer each day, learning each other's habits and quirks, building a partnership based on mutual respect and deep affection. In the evenings, they would sit together on their porch, watching the sunset and talking about their day. Vincent would tell her about the cattle and the land, about his growing understanding of the ranch's operations. Katherine would share stories about her students, their progress and challenges. They became a fixture in the community, respected and well-liked. Katherine's school grew, with more families sending their children as word spread about her skill as a teacher. Vincent's reputation as an honest, hard-working rancher grew as well, and Mr. McCready increasingly relied on his judgment. In the spring, Katherine discovered she was pregnant. She told Vincent one evening as they sat on the porch, nervous about his reaction. "Really?" Vincent asked, his face lighting up. "A baby, yes," Katherine said. "Are you happy?" Vincent pulled her into his arms. "I am thrilled, terrified but thrilled. We are going to be parents." The pregnancy was healthy, though Katherine had to stop teaching in her 7th month when it became too difficult to stand for long periods. The community rallied around her, with women bringing food and advice, helping her prepare for the baby. On a warm October day, almost exactly a year after their engagement, Katherine went into labor. Mrs. McCready and the midwife from town attended her, while Vincent paced anxiously outside. The labor was long and difficult, and there were moments when Vincent feared he would lose her, but Katherine was strong. Just after midnight, their son was born, a healthy boy with dark hair and blue eyes that would eventually turn the same shade as his mother's. "A son," Vincent said wonderingly, holding the baby for the first time. "We have a son." "What should we name him?" Katherine asked, exhausted but happy. They had discussed names but had not decided. Vincent looked down at the tiny face, so perfect and new, and thought of his father. "What about James? After my father, James Vincent Kane," Katherine said, testing it. "I like it. Jamie for short." "Jamie," Vincent agreed. "Welcome to the world, little man." Being parents changed them in ways they had not anticipated. The sleepless nights were hard, but the joy of watching their son grow made up for it. Vincent was a devoted father, helping with night feedings and diaper changes without complaint. When Jamie was 6 months old, Katherine felt ready to return to teaching part-time. She arranged with another woman in town to watch Jamie during school hours, and she resumed her work with her students 3 days a week. Life fell into a comfortable rhythm. Vincent continued building his stake in the ranch, and by their second anniversary, he owned 40%. Mr. McCready was talking about full retirement in a few years, selling the remaining 60% to Vincent on favorable terms. When Jamie was 2, Katherine became pregnant again. This time, she knew what to expect, and the pregnancy felt easier despite the fact that she was chasing a toddler around. Their second child, a daughter they named Alice Rose, was born on a beautiful spring morning. She had her mother's dark hair and her father's blue eyes, and Vincent was utterly smitten from the moment he saw her. "2 children," he said in wonder. "We have 2 beautiful children. We are blessed," Katherine agreed. As their family grew, so did their prosperity. Vincent's partnership with McCready was profitable, and Katherine's teaching brought in additional income and deep satisfaction. They were able to expand their cabin, adding 2 bedrooms and a larger kitchen. The Oklahoma Territory was changing too. In 1907, when Jamie was 7 and Alice was 5, Oklahoma achieved statehood. Ardmore grew larger, more settled, with proper schools and churches and businesses replacing the rougher frontier establishments. Katherine watched the changes with mixed feelings. She had loved the wild freedom of the territory days, but she appreciated the stability and opportunities that statehood brought. Her school became officially part of the county system, which meant better funding and resources. When Jamie was 10, Mr. McCready's health began to fail. He and Mrs. McCready decided to retire to live with their daughter in Kansas. They offered Vincent the opportunity to buy the remaining 60% of the ranch at a price far below market value. "You have earned this," Mr. McCready said. "You have made this ranch more profitable than I ever did. It should be yours." Vincent and Katherine stayed up late that night discussing the offer. It would require taking on debt, using all their savings and working even harder than they already did. But it would also mean owning a substantial ranch outright, securing their children's future. "What do you think?" Vincent asked. "I think we should do it," Katherine said. "This has always been your dream to own your own ranch. Now we can make it happen." They accepted the offer, and after the paperwork was finalized, Vincent and Katherine Kane became the sole owners of what was now officially called the Kane Ranch. It was 3,000 acres of good grazing land with strong water rights and a growing herd of cattle. The work was intense, but they thrived on it. Jamie, now old enough to help, took to ranch work with enthusiasm. Alice was more interested in books and learning, taking after her mother, but she helped where she could over the years. The ranch continued to grow and prosper. Vincent proved to be an excellent businessman as well as a skilled cattleman. He made smart decisions about breeding and land management, and the Kane Ranch became known throughout Oklahoma for producing quality beef cattle. Katherine continued teaching until Alice started school, then focused on managing the ranch accounts and hospitality. The Kane Ranch became known for its generous hospitality, hosting neighboring ranchers and cattlemen from across the state. Through it all, Vincent and Katherine's love remained strong. They still sat on their porch in the evenings, though now it was the porch of the fine ranch house they had built to replace the old cabin. They still talked about their days, their children, their dreams. "Do you ever think about that day in the saloon?" Katherine asked one evening. They were in their 40s now, their children nearly grown, their hair starting to show gray. "Sometimes," Vincent said. "I think about how different our lives would have been if I had ridden past Ardmore instead of stopping. Do you ever wonder what would have happened to me?" Vincent's arm tightened around her. "I try not to. I do not like to imagine you with anyone else in any other life." "I would not have survived it," Katherine said quietly. "Not with my spirit intact. You saved me, Vincent. You gave me back my life." "You gave me a life worth living," Vincent said. "Before I met you, I was just existing, working toward a goal that felt empty. You made everything meaningful." As their children grew into adults, Jamie took over more of the ranch operations. He had Vincent's skill with cattle and land, combined with a good head for business. Alice pursued teaching like her mother, eventually taking over Catherine's position at the county school. When Jamie was 23, he married a sweet girl named Sarah from a neighboring ranch. A year later, they gave Vincent and Katherine their first grandchild, a boy they named Vincent after his grandfather. "We are grandparents," Vincent said in wonder, holding baby Vincent for the first time. "How did we get old enough to be grandparents?" "By being blessed enough to live this long," Katherine said, watching him with their grandson. "By building a good life together." Alice married a few years later, choosing a teacher from Oklahoma City. They settled in town, and Alice continued teaching while raising her own family. Vincent and Katherine stepped back from the day-to-day ranch operations, letting Jamie and Sarah run things while they enjoyed their grandchildren and each other. They traveled some, taking a train trip to Colorado to see the mountains Vincent remembered from his youth, and another to Missouri so Katherine could visit her mother's grave. But mostly they were content to stay on their ranch, in the home they had built together, surrounded by the family and community they had created. On their 30th wedding anniversary, the whole family gathered for a celebration. Their children and grandchildren, neighbors and friends, all came together to honor the couple who had become pillars of the community. 30 years, Vincent said in his speech, looking at Katherine with eyes that still held the same love as the day they married. 30 years ago, I walked into a saloon in Ardmore and saw a woman in trouble. I thought I was saving her, but the truth is, she saved me. Katherine gave me purpose, love, family, everything that makes life worth living. I would pay double again, 1,000 times over, for the life we have built together." Katherine stood and kissed him to thunderous applause. "And I would choose you again, every single day. You are the best man I have ever known, Vincent Kane, and I love you more today than I did 30 years ago." They danced together as they had at their wedding, though their steps were slower now. But the love was just as strong, perhaps stronger for having weathered the storms and joys of 3 decades together. As the years passed, their love story became legend in Ardmore. People would point out the Kane Ranch and tell newcomers about how it all started, about the cowboy who paid double to set a woman free and ended up finding the love of his life. Vincent and Katherine lived to see their grandchildren grown, to hold great-grandchildren, to celebrate their 50th wedding anniversary surrounded by a family that sprawled across 3 generations. "You have any regrets?" Katherine asked one evening. They were elderly now, both in their 70s, sitting on the porch as they had done for decades. "Not a single one," Vincent said firmly. "Every decision I made from the moment I walked into that saloon led me here. To you, to our family, to this life. How could I regret any of that?" "I do not regret anything either," Katherine said. "Even the hard parts, even my father's death and the auction, because it brought me to you. We were meant to find each other," Vincent said. "I truly believe that." They sat together watching the sunset paint the Oklahoma sky in shades of gold and rose. Around them, the ranch hummed with life, with the sounds of cattle and horses, with the voices of family gathered for supper. Vincent Kane had come to Ardmore 35 years ago and paid $1,000 to free a woman he did not know. It was the best investment he ever made, because it bought him a lifetime of love, a family that stretched across generations, and a legacy that would endure long after he was gone. Katherine rested her head on his shoulder, and Vincent kissed her silver hair. They had built something beautiful together, something lasting. From the ashes of tragedy and humiliation had risen a love story that proved the power of kindness, the value of integrity, and the redemptive force of genuine love. They had been blessed beyond measure, and they knew it. As the stars came out one by one in the vast Oklahoma sky, Vincent and Katherine Kane sat together in perfect contentment, grateful for every moment of the life they had shared. Their story did not end with grand gestures or dramatic moments, but rather with the quiet satisfaction of a life well lived, a love well tended, and a family well raised. It was a legacy written not in gold or glory, but in the hearts of the people they touched and the generations they inspired. And in Ardmore, Oklahoma, their memory would live on, a testament to the truth that sometimes the greatest love stories begin in the darkest moments, when one person chooses kindness over indifference, generosity over greed, and love over everything else. The cowboy who paid double did not just free a woman from bondage. He freed her to love, to dream, to become everything she was meant to be. And in doing so, he freed himself as well, finding in her eyes the home he had been searching for all along. Their love had transformed them both, and through them, had touched countless others. It was a love story for the ages, born in the Wild West but timeless in its truth. That real love, genuine love, the kind that lasts a lifetime and beyond, is built on sacrifice, nurtured in daily kindness, and sustained by choosing each other again and again, through every season of life. And so they lived, and so they loved, and so their story became legend, a bright thread woven into the fabric of Ardmore's history, reminding everyone who heard it that heroes still exist, that kindness still matters, and that true love, when you are fortunate enough to find it, is worth more than all the gold in the West. Their final years were peaceful, spent surrounded by the family they had created and the community they had served. When Vincent finally passed at the age of 78, Katherine held his hand and whispered that she would see him again soon. She followed him 6 months later, unable to bear being without the man who had been her partner, her love, her everything for over 5 decades. They were buried side by side on a hill overlooking the ranch, under a sky as wide and blue as the one that had witnessed their first meeting. Their headstone bore simple words, Vincent and Katherine Kane, beloved, together forever. And in the hearts of everyone who knew them, their love story lived on, a beacon of hope and a reminder that even in the hardest moments when life seems darkest, love can find a way. All it takes is one person brave enough to choose kindness, generous enough to give without expectation, and wise enough to recognize that the greatest treasures in life cannot be bought or sold, but only given freely from one heart to another. The Kane Ranch continued to thrive under Jamie's management and eventually passed to his children. The school where Katherine taught was named in her honor. And every year on Christmas Day, the anniversary of their wedding, the family gathered to remember the remarkable love story that had given them all life. It was a story that began with an auction and a cowboy willing to pay double. It grew into a love that sustained 2 people through decades of joy and hardship. And it ended not with an ending at all, but with a legacy that would endure for generations, proving that love, real love, never truly dies. It lives on in the lives it touches, the hearts it changes, and the families it creates. Vincent and Katherine Kane's love story was one for the ages, a Wild West romance that proved the enduring power of kindness, the strength of commitment, and the transformative nature of genuine, selfless love. And in Ardmore, Oklahoma, it would be remembered and celebrated forever, a bright light shining through history, illuminating the path for all who seek to love truly, deeply, and forever.